This happened a few weeks ago. I'm 34 now, and decided to go camping in the Cascade Mountains to escape after a tough semester. I'm a high school biology teacher, and I thought a month in the snow-laden forests would recharge my batteries. I had camped before, but this was my first solo trip in winter. I set up camp, and it was quiet. Just me and the woods. I've never stopped thinking about what happened that night. On the first night, after I finished setting everything up, I stoked the campfire. The flames flickered, casting shadows around me. That's when I heard laughter. It was faint and carried through the trees. I thought maybe some campers were nearby, and it made me feel a bit better about being alone. I shrugged it off, slipped into my sleeping bag, and tried to convince myself I was safe. But over the next few days, things changed. The laughter came more often, but it sounded different, more eerie than comforting. I could hear it at night, like it was creeping closer. I would sit by the fire, wrapped in my blanket, and feel the hair on my arms stand up. I tried to focus on my books, but every time the laughter echoed, I felt my heart race. It was unsettling, and I think it started to seep into my dreams. One evening, as the sun dipped below the trees, shadows flitted between the trunks. They moved quickly and just out of sight. I thought my eyes were playing tricks on me. Maybe it was just my imagination, but I felt a chill run down my spine. I walked toward the sounds, but when I reached the spot, there was nothing. Nighttime drew in, and the laughter persisted. The following night, I stepped outside my tent and froze in place. I saw something, a figure maybe, sitting at the edge of my campsite. It blended into the shadow, and for a moment I thought it was just a trick of the light. I blinked, and it was gone. I felt cold, colder than the winter air itself, and I hurried back inside. My fingers trembled as I tried to reassure myself it was nothing but the wind. With each passing night, my trail markers began to change. I could have sworn I set them up in a row, but they were scattered. I tried to ignore it, but each day felt more suffocating. I mean, who else would be out here? I felt watched. I could hear the laughter during the day, and it felt like it was right behind me. Then, on the last night, as I packed my things, I turned around and saw a little girl, maybe 8 or 9, standing at the tree line. She looked lost. I wanted to help her, but when I approached, she just stared at me and smiled. I asked if she was okay, but the laughter echoed around us. I turned back to look at my campsite, and when I looked again, she was gone. I don't know if it was real or just my mind slipping, but I felt even colder than before. What was that? Was it my mind playing tricks, or was there something else in the woods? I'm still not sure. I didn't sleep well that night. My mind raced with shadows and whispers.
The laughter echoed in my thoughts, mixing with the memory of that girl. Was she real? I forced myself to shake it off. I had to leave the next morning anyway. Just pack my things and get on the road. Easier said than done. As first light broke over the trees, I packed up my gear, fighting the urge to look back. The air was thick with tension, and each rustle of branches my pulse quickened. Just as I was rolling up my sleeping bag, I noticed something unusual. A small piece of fabric caught on a low branch. It was bright pink, and it looked like a child's jacket. I approached it slowly, my heart pounding. My mind raced. Could it belong to the girl? I reached out to touch it, and before I could even think, the laughter rang out again, this time louder and more sinister. I recoiled, stepping back as fear washed over me. The woods felt alive, and I was intruding on something I didn't understand. The laughter followed me as I continued to pack, intertwining with my doubts and fears. I chanted to myself, "It's just the wind, just the wind." But deep down, I knew it was more than that. My eyes darted around the tree line, expecting to see something lurking there, watching me. Everything felt wrong. When I finally finished packing, I turned back toward the trail, desperate to escape. That's when I noticed a figure standing farther away in the trees. My breath caught in my throat. It was the girl again. Her back was to me, and she stood so still that I thought maybe I was dreaming. I called out, my voice shaky, "Are you lost?" Slowly, she turned around. Her smile was wide, stretching unnaturally across her face. But her eyes were hollow, dark voids that sent chills down my spine. I wanted to run, but I felt rooted to the spot. The laughter was now a cacophony in my ears, pulling me in every direction. And then, Just like before, she vanished. One moment she was there, and the next, nothing but an echo in the woods. I spun around, heart racing, and grabbed my gear. I had to get out. I raced down the trail, only glancing back once. The woods were silent again, but I could still feel eyes on me. I quickened my pace, the trail seeming longer than before. Just as I thought I was far enough away, I reached a clearing and stopped dead in my tracks. There it was, a tree covered in small, jagged carvings. Each carving was a child's face, laughter frozen in place by the knife that etched them into the bark. I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. I turned to leave when I heard the laughter again, close and overwhelming. I bolted back down the path, desperate to reach my car before whatever was in those woods caught up to me. But before I could reach the end of the trail, I glanced back once more. The girl stood at the edge of the clearing again, now looking directly at me, her smile twisting wider than before, and everything went dark. I gasped as the darkness enveloped me like a thick blanket. My instincts kicked in. I stumbled forward, disoriented, desperately clawing my way through the void. Memories of the girl flitted in and out of my mind. The laughter, those hollow eyes. I had to focus. Light returned abruptly. I blinked, squinting against the sudden brightness. I was lying on the forest floor, leaves and dirt clinging to my clothes. Panic surged through me again. I scrambled to my feet. Had I fainted? Or worse, was I lost? My mouth was dry and my heart thumped loudly in my chest. I took a moment to orient myself, scanning the surroundings. The tree line loomed tall and dense. The laughter was gone. That was something. But it only made the silence feel heavier. I needed to find my way back to the trail. I turned and spotted the familiar path, the clearing just a few feet away. I rushed toward it, but a shadow flickered in my peripheral vision. I stopped, my chest tightening. The girl? No, I couldn't handle this again. As I took a step back, I noticed something lying on the ground, not far from where I'd fallen. I leaned down, my hands trembling. It was a small doll, its porcelain face cracked and dirtied, resembling a child's face. A chill crawled up my spine. This felt wrong, wrong, wrong. I wanted to run, but my eyes remained glued to that thing. I had just made a decision to leave it when I heard it. The laughter was back, clearer and more mocking than before. I whipped around, looking for some sign of her. Instead, I saw a group of trees ahead shaking violently, like something was moving within them. I squinted, dread pooling in my stomach. "Who's there?" I shouted, my voice wavering. The only response was the laughter morphing into something more menacing, disturbing in its intensity. I glanced back at the doll. My fight or flight response kicked in, and I bolted toward the path, leaving the doll behind. Behind me, the laughter echoed, weaving through the trees, a chorus of whispers that sent shivers racing down my spine. I sprinted, the trail finally coming into clearer view. I knew I had to reach my car, my only escape. My feet pounded against the earth, but as I reached the edge of the forest, something caught my eye in the distance. A figure. Was it the girl? Heart racing, I slowed down, trying to catch my breath. Part of me was curious, part of me was terrified, and just like that, she was there again, staring straight at me, her smile terrifyingly wide. But this time, I noticed something else. Around her feet lay more of those dolls, scattered like lost toys. "I want to play," she sang softly, the words flowing like water but laced with malice. I turned, instinct driving me forward, and I sprinted, pushing my legs to their limit. I needed to escape this madness, but as I reached the clearing, my foot caught on the twisted roots jutting from the ground. I stumbled, crashing to my knees. And that's when I saw it, a glint of metal beneath the leaves. I reached for it, fingers trembling. It was a knife, blade dull but stained and old.
I clutched it tight, feeling both empowered and consumed by dread. I stood up, breathing hard, only to notice the girl was right in front of me again. Her smile now widened impossibly, and her eyes, I couldn't breathe. Then she whispered in that sing-song voice, "You'll join us soon." And all at once, darkness surged back in, swallowing me whole. I awoke again, and this time the darkness was different. It felt thicker, cold, and wrapped around me like a heavy fog. I blinked, trying to shake off the nausea. Gradually, shapes came into focus around me, twisted trees reaching like skeletal fingers, their leaves dead and scattered across the ground. Panic threatened to claw at my insides, but I forced myself to breathe. I was still holding the knife, the weight of it grounding me. Shakily, I pushed myself to my feet. Everything felt off. The laughter, there was silence now, a silence that felt almost eager. As I took a step, my foot crunched on something brittle. I looked down to see more porcelain dolls scattered all around.
Each one was cracked, their features twisted in expressions I didn't want to recognize. Why were they here? I heard a rustle, then a giggle. It was soft, almost playful. My heart raced. I turned toward the sound, trying to see through the darkness. The girl stood there again, her hair falling over her face like a curtain. She danced lightly on her feet, her gaze fixed on me. "Join us," she said again, her voice a melody that clanged with a sinister undertone. I felt dread pulse in my veins. The dolls, the laughter, all of it. I had to get away. I bolted in the opposite direction, heart pounding, knife raised like a shield. The forest pressed in around me, the shadows lengthening and shifting with each frantic step. I couldn't hear anything but my breath, fast and raspy. And then I felt it, a tug at my jacket, a cold grip on my arm. I whipped around, knife poised to strike. Instead of the girl, it was just a branch entwined with vines. I released a shaky breath, but my relief was short-lived. Something moved in the darkness behind me. "Not so fast," a voice hissed, deep and unwelcome, as another figure emerged from the shadows. It was a man, cloaked in darkness, face obscured. My heart sank. There were more of them. I took a few cautious steps back, my eyes darting between him and the girl, who appeared just over his shoulder, still grinning. They were like a twisted tableau. Who were they? What did they want with me? "Why do you have my knife?" the man growled, his eyes narrowing dangerously. My grip on the blade tightened. I had no intention of giving it up. "I'll never join you," I shouted, even though fear knotted in my throat. The girl's laughter rang out into the thick air. "It's not just a game," he replied, stepping closer. "A choice. You can still decide to play." A choice? What choice? Every instinct screamed for me to run, to flee this nightmare. But where could I go?
I glanced past him, searching for a way out. Suddenly, the ground beneath me shifted. The earth quaked, and the trees creaked as if they were alive. There was an entrance, a dark maw appearing between the roots, beckoning me. Then the girl hiked her head back and cackled, sending chills racing down my spine. It was suddenly clear I was not alone in this forest, and they weren't letting me leave. I had to make a choice, and time was running out. I hesitated as the ground trembled beneath me. The dark entrance gaped wider, drawing my gaze like a moth to a flame. I couldn't tell where it led, but I knew I couldn't stay here. The man took another step forward, and I felt the threat emanating from him like heat from a fire. "Make your choice," he urged, a sly grin creeping onto his lips. He was waiting for my next move, and I could feel the intensity of their gaze boring into me. The girl remained just behind him, her eyes shining with delight at my discomfort. I looked at the opening. The shadows seemed to beckon me, but I couldn't shake the feeling that it was a trap. If I went in there, what would I find? I clenched my jaw, fighting the urge to bolt. "Do I have to decide right now?" I asked, my voice trembling slightly. The man laughed, a deep rumbling sound that echoed through the forest. "You think you have time. This is no dream." I took another cautious step back. Behind me, the forest felt alive, branches scratching and swaying as if whispering my fate. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was caught in a web they had spun. "Tell me what you want," I shouted, hoping to buy some time. Maybe if I understood their motives, I could find a way out. The man exchanged a glance with the girl, an unreadable expression crossing their faces. "We want you to play with us," he said finally, his tone shifting to something almost sweet. "All you have to do is let go of the knife." "Let go?" I repeated, incredulous. "You want me to put down my only defense?" "Defenses are illusions." His words hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. I couldn't interpret what he meant, but I could sense the threat behind his calm demeanor. I lifted the knife, considering the weight of it in my hands. Just then, the girl danced forward, her laughter echoing like wind chimes in a storm. She tilted her head, and in that moment, I spotted something glimmering behind her in the darkness. The flashes of silver looked like more knives, dozens of them embedded in the earth like trophies. "What are those?" I asked, my heartbeat pounding in my ears. "Those are the losses," she said, her smile wide and unyielding. "Those who chose wrong." A shiver coursed through me.
I glanced down at the dolls still littering the ground. Is that what they were? Lost? Every game has its stakes, he replied. Are you ready to play? I felt cornered. There was no clear path in front of me. I needed to make a choice, but the weight of their expectations pressed in from all sides.
That's when I noticed something moving deeper in the forest, a flicker of light, an ember glowing in the distance. Wait, I said, my voice steadier now. What about that? Their expressions shifted, a hint of concern flashing in their eyes. For just a moment, I saw uncertainty, and it gave me the push I needed. I turned and ran toward the light, dodging branches and twisting through the darkness. But as I fled, I could hear the girls' laughter behind me, ringing out like a warning. You can't escape the game. The forest closed in, and the light flickered like it was teasing me. There was no guarantee it would lead to safety. I had to keep moving, because I felt them behind me, closing the distance, relentless and hungering for the choice I had yet to make. The trees seemed to grip me tightly as I ran, their branches grasping like skeletal fingers reaching for my throat. The light flickered ahead, wavering with each frantic step. Dread settled in my chest like a tangible weight, but I had to keep pushing forward. I didn't want to look back. I could hear them, the soft whisper of their laughter, like rustling leaves, taunting me. As I stumbled toward the glow, I realized it was not just a light, but a small fire crackling softly in a clearing. Flames danced eagerly, cutting through the shadows like a beacon. Hope surged within me, but it was quickly overshadowed by caution. What if it was another trap? I slowed my pace, peering into the clearing. The firelight cast eerie shadows that twisted against the trees. That's when I saw them. Figures stood around the fire. People? Ghostly shapes. Their faces were obscured in the flickering light, but something about their posture seemed oddly unnatural. They weren't simply specters of the forest. They were enjoying the warmth, a strange calmness enveloping them. I took a few cautious steps closer. "Hello?" I called out, my voice sounding small against the crackling fire. No one turned. They continued to move in a rhythmic dance, synchronized as if responding to a melody I couldn't hear. My instinct told me to retreat, but something compelled me to watch. There was a woman in a flowing gown, her arms extending as she twirled. A man with wild hair leaped gracefully, knee-deep in leaves, as if reenacting some ancient ritual. Suddenly, a man emerged from their ranks, a man with the same grin as the one chasing me. "You see, they're waiting for you," he said smoothly, stepping closer to the fire. "Waiting for me?" I echoed, a chill running down my spine. "Yes, they felt your presence. You can join them, you know." He gestured toward the dancers, and for a split second, as the flames crackled higher, I could see faces turn toward me. Their eyes were hollow, dark voids that promised nothing good. Panic set in. "No," I wanted to shout, but the word failed me, tangled in fear. I turned to run again, but from the corner of my eye, I saw the girl from before emerging from the shadows.
Her laughter pierced the night air, a clear, haunting sound. "Why resist?" she taunted. "You must choose, or else risk becoming like them." I felt heat wash over me as the fire popped. The figures around it began to sway, their movements growing frantic, and I didn't want to find out what would happen if I didn't make a decision. But what choice could I make? Join the people dancing around the fire, or face the darkness once more? That's when everything shifted. The ground beneath me trembled, and the fire's flames sputtered as if gasping. I stumbled back, fear twisting inside me. "What is this?" I whispered, but it felt like I was shouting. The ground opened beneath the fire, a gaping hole spiraled down into the earth. Fear surged in my veins. My heart raced as the dancers froze in place, their hollow eyes boring into me. It felt like they were waiting for me to fall in, begging me to step forward. Just as I turned to escape, I heard the girl's voice bubbling with laughter. "The game demands a conclusion. Don't leave without a choice." Before I could react, the trembling intensified and the fire erupted, flames shooting out in wild arcs. In that split second, I noticed something shiny at the heart of the blaze. It looked like a knife, glimmering among the embers. Instinct kicked in. I lunged forward, reaching for the knife, feeling desperate. Was I really going to join whatever this was? As my fingers brushed against the hot metal, a shockwave knocked me backward, and darkness engulfed me. I hit the ground hard, breathless and disoriented. Everything went black.
I awoke with a jolt, the taste of damp earth filling my mouth. Confusion spun around me like a dizzying ride. My heart thudded loudly in my ears as I pushed myself up. The clearing was gone, replaced by a thick fog that clung to everything like a wet blanket. Shadows danced in the distance, but there were no flames, just an oppressive silence. Panic clawed at me. Where was I? My breath came fast, labored. I grappled with the memory of the fire, the figures, the voice demanding a choice. Memories flickered in my mind, warped and distorted. I had reached for that knife. Had I grabbed it? I stood cautiously, scanning the fog for a sign of life. It felt suffocating, like I was trapped in a thick white void. "Hello?" My voice trembled. No response. Faint whispers snaked for the air, a soft susurration that made my skin prickle. I felt their presence before I saw them. Figures began to emerge from the fog. They moved with a seamless grace, floating just above the ground, eyes glimmering like stars in the night. No, they were not stars. They were hollow. "What do you want?" I croaked, taking a step back. The figures moved closer, their faces still shrouded. A chill settled over me. I could feel them beckoning, tugging at something deep within. My stomach twisted, instinct telling me to run again. "Join us," one whispered, its voice like the wind through the trees. "Never."
I shouted, surprising myself. The fog seemed to shrink back at my defiance, revealing more distance between me and them. But they only swayed, their features still obscured. "You belong here," another voice coaxed, wrapping around me like a serpent. "You cannot outrun what you are." With every word, dread seeped into my bones. I turned on my heel, squinting through the fog. I had to find my way out. The laughter echoed again, one voice ringing louder than the others. It was her, the girl from the fire's edge. I sprinted through the mist, but the laughter followed me, echoing through the trees until it transformed into something sharp. "Why do you fight it?" Each step I took felt heavier, as if the shadows themselves whispered dark promises. "Just leave me alone," I screamed, but my voice was swallowed by the silence. Then I saw it, a faint glow cutting through the swirling fog. Not the flickering fire, but a solid, warm light that beckoned me from deeper in the woods. Hope flared briefly. Maybe it leads back to safety, I thought. I ran towards it, pushing branches out of my way, every instinct screaming to keep going. But just before I reached the light, something stopped me cold. A figure loomed ahead, blocking my path. The man from before, the one with the unsettling grin. "You thought you could escape," he said, his voice smooth and mocking. "This is where the fun begins." I glanced back, my body frozen in fear. I was trapped, caught between that sinister smile and the shadows closing in around me. I had to make a choice again. Was there any way out of this? Then the ground trembled once more. I felt the world shake under my feet, like I was on the precipice of something terrible. "Choose, or it will choose for you." The grin widened, and the darkness behind him stirred. I could feel my heart racing, thoughts a jumbled mess. I looked for an escape, but the path was vanishing. Desperation surged. I had to act quickly. That's when the shadows lunged. I barely registered the movement before they were upon me. The shadows swirled like living smoke, reaching for me, enveloping my legs. I stumbled back, but the man's grin only widened as I fought against the grasp. "Do you really think you can resist?" His voice was smooth, taunting. "This is your fate now." I felt the weight of the darkness pressing against me, stifling my breath. With a surge of adrenaline, I lunged forward, trying to break free. "Get off me," I shouted, anger fueling my struggle. My hands clawed at the thick shadows around my ankles, the cold seeping into my skin. Suddenly, the ground trembled again, and instinct kicked in. I squeezed my eyes shut and darted left, breaking through the tendrils of darkness just enough to slip past the figure blocking my path. I didn't look back. I sprinted, heart hammering in my chest. A realization hit me like a cold splash of water. I couldn't just run aimlessly. I had to make a choice. The light, I had to reach it.
I broke through the dense fog, gasping for air as I approached the glow. It pulsed like a heartbeat, strong and steady, promising refuge from the shadows thrumming behind me. As I got closer, I saw it was a circle of stones, each illuminated from within, casting warmth into the chilling air. "Step inside," a soft voice coaxed from the circle. It was her, the girl from the fire, her face now distinct and hauntingly beautiful. "You'll be safe here." "But what is this?" I panted, glancing over my shoulder as the shadows slithered closer. "Will they follow me?" "They might," she said, her eyes shining in the light. "But they can't cross the boundary. You can find peace here." I hesitated.
Was it a trap? But the shadows were inching toward me. Panic clawed at my throat, spilling over into urgency. I took a step toward the stones, feeling the heat radiate. A sudden crash shattered the stillness. The ground shook violently. "No," the man's voice boomed through the chaos. "You can't hide." I stumbled, instinctively stepping into the sanctuary of light, just as a dark tendril reached for me. It recoiled, hissing as it touched the boundary. The girl smiled, but her expression twisted, shadow traces flickering across her face. I felt a sense of safety momentarily, but it immediately transformed into unease. "What was that?" I asked breathlessly, turning to her. The stones pulsed with energy, but I sensed something else, something wrong. She drew closer, the warmth of her presence masking the chill around us. "It's not over," she breathed, her voice barely above a whisper. "What they want, they will find." The looming shadows encircled our haven, their whispers growing louder. My heart raced again, a warning knell. I needed answers, not just safety. "Why are they after me?" "They seek your choice," she replied, her gaze flickering nervously to the shadows. "You can still decide." Then everything shattered. The pulsing light flickered, dimming, and the shadows surged forward with an electrifying hunger. "Choose now," the man shouted from beyond, laughter spilling into the air. I clenched my fists, fueled by a burning question in my gut. "I refuse to give in," I yelled, pushing back against fear. But then a truth emerged victorious in my mind. That's when I knew what I had to do. The moment I made my decision, a rush of energy surged through me. I didn't know what would happen next, but I felt a strange confidence blossom inside, drowning out the fear that clawed at my throat. "I choose to fight," I shouted, louder than my own doubts. Instantly, the shadows recoiled, their dark forms twisting in confusion. The girl's eyes widened. "You must be careful," she cautioned, her voice urgent. "They'll retaliate." But I couldn't let fear win again. "I'm done being a puppet," I declared, feeling the ground rumble beneath my feet like it was shifting with the energy of my resolve. I'd faced the darkness before. I could do it again.
As if summoned by my determination, the shadows surged forward with renewed fury, their whisperings rising to a crescendo. "You think you can defy us?" The man's voice echoed through the air, deep and sinister. "You belong to the darkness." "No," I yelled, clenching my fists tighter. "I belong to myself." And as I stood there, surrounded by the flickering light of the stones, something surprising happened. The pulsing glow intensified, surging outward like a wave, pushing back against the encroaching darkness. It felt powerful, alive, as if it responded to my declaration. "Now," I commanded, and to my surprise, the girl stepped forward. She raised her hands, and a golden light burst forth from her, merging with the stone's glow. Together, we formed a protective barrier, separating us from the shadows. "Keep focused," she urged, her voice steady but strained. "You must channel what you want." In that instant, everything clicked into place. My choice wasn't simply a rejection of the darkness. It was a promise to embrace the light within me. I closed my eyes and concentrated, picturing everything I had fought for, my family, my friends, my dreams. The warmth surged within, and I let it pour out, embracing the luminescent energy. The shadows shrieked in pain, retreating from the brilliance that now radiated from us. I could feel their frustration like a storm brewing just beyond the border, but their power waned as I held my ground. "Can you feel it?" the girl asked, her presence a comforting guide. "You're stronger than they know." Just as I felt a rush of exhilaration, there came a sudden shift. The ground beneath my feet trembled violently, and I opened my eyes to see cracks forming in the air around us, as if reality itself was unraveling. "What's happening?" I gasped, fear rushing back in. "They're trying to break through," she gasped, her eyes wide with disbelief. "We can't let them." The shadows howled, a cacophony of rage and despair. Their forms twisted and morphed, taking on a monstrous shape, larger than anything I had ever seen. I could see the man's grin cutting through the darkness, almost palpable. "You can't fight fate," he roared, and the shadows surged forward, a dark wave threatening to engulf us. Impulsively, I extended my hands toward the light. "I choose to stand," I shouted again, this time with every fiber of my being. "I won't let you take me." The The brilliance erupted, engulfing the shadows in a blinding flash. In that moment, I felt something shift deep within me, a connection to this power, one that I hadn't realized existed. My heart raced as I felt invincible, weightless even. But then the light flickered again, leaving a heavy silence in its wake. That's when I saw it. A figure emerged between the shadows, a different kind of energy swirling around it. I couldn't tell if it was friend or foe, but I knew one thing. It had found me, and it was coming for me.
I stood in the center of the glowing circle, the jagged darkness pressing in around me like a suffocating fog. The man with the sinister grin lingered at the edge, his twisted laughter reverberating in my ears. The girl danced beside me, her face shifting between the radiance of our newfound power and the encroaching shadows, and I could feel the tenuous balance in the air. "Stay strong," she urged, her voice trembling. "They are desperate." I nodded, heart pounding louder than the chaos unfolding around us. I could feel the shadows gnashing teeth and furious howls clawing at the barrier we had erected, threatening to shatter the fragile safety. Suddenly, the ground beneath us shook violently, and the crackles of energy rippled outward. My focus strained under the pressure. "What do we do?" I shouted over the din. "Stay connected to the light," she cried. "We must amplify it." Drawing on every ounce of strength I had left, I focused again on the memories that anchored me. The laughter of my students, the warmth of family gatherings, the freedom of nature unmarred by fear. As I concentrated, I felt the energy swell within me, merging with the light radiating from the stones and the girl's presence. But even as the brightness surged, the shadows pushed back harder, clawing aggressively at our defenses. With every heartbeat, I felt like we were losing ground. "It's now or never," I yelled, and I determined to unleash all of the energy within me. I stretched my arms wide and summoned the essence of the light, pouring everything I had into it. "You can't break me," I roared. "I choose my fate." In that moment, the ground ruptured. The faces in the shadows twisted, howling as the brilliance burst forth, blinding and furious. It was as if the very fabric of reality tore apart, turning the darkness into a swirling tempest of despair. "Together," the girl shouted, her voice ringing clear amidst the chaos. And we both focused, delivering the final thrust of light into the maelstrom. An eruption of warmth swept over me as the brilliance collided with the darkness in a cataclysmic flash, illuminating everything for just a heartbeat. As the blinding light enveloped me, I felt myself lifted, weightless, and for a brief moment, the laughter faded into a haunting echo. I squeezed my eyes shut against the searing glare, but in that moment, I had never felt more alive. When I finally opened my eyes again, the light had vanished. I blinked rapidly, adjusting to the new surroundings. I was lying on the forest floor, the dim light of dawn creeping through the branches above. Around me lay silence, no whispers, no laughter, just the gentle rustle of leaves in the early morning breeze. I scrambled to my feet, confusion surging within. Was it over? Had I escaped? I ran my hands through my hair, trying to gather my thoughts. The trees felt different somehow. The ominous presence I had sensed was gone. But was this truly freedom?
I turned toward where the clearing had been, heart racing, but all I found was a normal forest, every shadow appearing just that, a mere shadow. But still, I noticed the faintest outline of something glimmering beneath the roots of a tree. Hesitant, I approached, my pulse quickening, and brushed aside the leaves. There, half buried in the soil, was a small glint of metal. I knelt, pulling the object free. It was a knife, dull and old, just like the one I'd seen before. I stared at the jagged blade, a surge of turmoil twisting in my gut. Was it a remnant of the darkness, a trophy, or a warning? A chill ran down my spine as I looked around the serene forest. Had I truly left it behind? Peering into the woods, a dread-filled thought struck hard. What would happen if I returned? Would they still linger at the edges, waiting for a chance to reclaim what I had fought so hard to escape? I stumbled backward, heart racing, wanting to flee but also feeling drawn to the depths of the forest. There were answers hidden within that I still yearned for. I could sense they remained, watching me from afar, perhaps waiting for me to make a choice once more. In the end, I turned my back to the eerie shadows, shaking off the dread that had begun to settle like dust in my mind. I chose to leave everything behind,
the echoes of the past haunting my steps as I walked away from the tree line and toward the waiting sun. But even as I left, I couldn't shake the feeling that the darkness would always be a part of me, lurking just beneath the surface, waiting for a moment of weakness to slip back in. As I reached a clearing, I took a deep breath, vowing to keep my guard up. A whisper of laughter echoed faintly in the wind, and I stopped, glancing back. But the forest was just that, a forest. For now, I found my way home, yet the questions lingered, and the uncertainty shaped my reality. Sometimes when I closed my eyes at night, I could still feel the warmth of the light flickering just beneath my thoughts, battling against the shadows. And it changed how I saw things. All I could do was hope that I would never find out what their game was truly about, or what it meant to join them.